So from there, man, like really just buckled down, got serious about financing, and just set up that debt account, right? I said, okay, I need to live on $1,000 a month, whatever it is. Everything else goes to there. And what was cool is I went through that debt company, whatever, and they told me that was the fastest they've seen somebody pay off that much money.
Well, everyone, thanks for listening to the Real Estate Mastery Podcast. This is Rick Flan, your host with Matt Brunner here. And today we're going to talk about his real estate journey and really just the success he's had, the challenges that he's had, but then really how he's been able to move forward and grow and really set a great example for what it should be like for us in the real estate industry. And so Matt, welcome. Thanks for joining us today, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So when we start out here, I'd love to just hear a bit about you, your background, and what you're doing now in the real estate industry.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thanks for having me. Super cool. Been in real estate for about 4 years, coming up in April of 2023. I think my career's been unique, I guess we'll say it, right? So I really started out in real estate. Honestly, when I got started, I was like $50K in debt, and it was like bad debt, right? Like I wish I could tell you it was like, oh, I was buying properties. No, it was like whatever, right? Like irresponsible 21-year-old, yada, yada, yada. American Express gave me way too high of a credit limit, whatever, right? So essentially like was just super in debt, not a smart person, didn't really understand finances, right? Or money or credit or anything along those lines. So yeah, I got started, sold a couple deals within my first couple months. That kind of got the brokerage owner's attention because like when you're getting your real estate license, everybody says like the things on the test don't matter to be an agent, right? And
sure.
Thankfully, somebody told me that. So it was probably a blessing and a curse, right? Because I didn't study the course material at all.
But you passed, because some people, it still takes a bunch of tries.
It took me a couple tries.
Okay, but you didn't study, so it's fine.
Yeah, until I like opened the book and actually read the materials, I didn't pass. So crazy, right? But so yeah, I got into real estate. Basically, instead of learning the course materials, I just learned how to build a business, how to build a brand. Like I was more stuck on that, right? So essentially got into it, started running some marketing stuff, some promotional stuff. Built like a ClickFunnels, if you know what that is by chance, and essentially closed a few deals from that. And then the broker owner at Synergy Properties turned into kind of a mentor for me. So Keith Riddle.
Yeah, great guy.
Love that guy. And essentially he was just like, you're still working part-time. Why aren't you doing this full-time? And I was like, well, I got this debt. I got this thing, right? And he was like, well, go quit your part-time job. Come work for me. Part-time, help around the brokerage, do that marketing thing you built for the brokerage. And I was like, okay, cool. That turned from like 15 hours a week to like 40 plus hours a week. Turned from, hey, help with marketing to, help me recruit, help me build my brand, help me do this. Got introduced to investing on that. So I did that for probably 6 to 8 months, right? Didn't really have time to like sell real estate, but I learned so much, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was so far ahead just because I got introduced to everything, right?
Yeah.
Keith has, fix and flip companies, wholesale companies, retail company, all that good stuff. And essentially he wanted me to help out with the marketing with the wholesaling company. So I started there, and then that kind of blossomed into like, hey, move into like a dispositions role, which is like selling the properties to like other investors. And then, one day Josh, Size, and then Keith, they're like, hey, we need to split. And it's kind of like my parents got in a divorce, right? And it's like, who are you going to live with?
Gotcha.
So branched off from, Synergy, and then we started Northwest Invest, which was a traditional real estate brokerage. We started NWC Investments. I call it an acquisitions company.
Okay.
Wholesaling, fix and flip, all that good stuff. And then I was simultaneously kind of helping start those, and then just approached Josh and I was like, hey, I'm way better at the day-to-day stuff. Let me kind of step into like a COO role type of thing. We did that for about 1.5 years. We went from a team of 4 to about a team of 24 within that 1.5 years. We did about 150 deals a year. We grossed about 1.5 in revenue, all that good stuff, right? Everything was great. Everything was dandy. And then grass is always greener, right? So
Sure.
Got recruited to a company in New York. That company in New York was called Life by Design, right? So basically got recruited to that. And then my job was to be the COO of the COO. So Life by Design owned a wholesaling company, a coaching company, and then a direct mail company. So my job was to manage the 3 people. So the company's prospered, right? Got over there, immediately fired the COO and the wholesaling company. We built the coaching company from scratch, right? And then the direct mail company, we never really launched, to be honest, but it was always there, right? We were working towards it. But yeah, so went into that company, and then, we quickly fired that COO, sat in that role over there. When I got there, that company was doing about 8 transactions a month, just in Rochester, New York. We did that much. And then we rebuilt our processes because, like, in New York, it's like the average transaction date or timeline is like 6+ months. It's insane.
Yeah, I've heard in New York, it's a totally different beast when it comes to selling real estate.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. It's like an attorney state, which, like, there's other attorney states that don't take 6 months. It's just like New York attorneys, for whatever reason, they just whatever, right? So essentially, we got over there, and then we said, okay, well then screw New York. This takes too long because, like, our cash conversion cycle, right? So it's like, we spend money day one. When do we get paid, right? It was like 6 months long.
Yeah.
You have one bad month, you're screwed.
Right. That's a long time to hold the cash.
Yeah, especially when you're spending $80K a month, right? In marketing or whatever it was, right? So we basically rebuilt that, and we built out a virtual model. So we took that virtual model into 3 markets, and then we said, okay, well, we don't have the capacity to, take on the whole nation, right? Because we're big thinkers, whatever. We wanted to do that. So we franchised it. Franchised it, right?
The air quotes, okay.
Yeah, it was there. And then we started selling that. The guy I was working for, he was on Bigger Pockets, so we had a bunch of people reach out. And then, we just kind of sold like a franchisable model. Took that into 2 more markets. So on average, we had about 30 transactions in escrow from everything at all times. And then honestly just read a book. Book said, stop working for other people. You can't get wealthy working for other people, yada, yada, yada. All that good stuff. And then I was just kind of tired of being number 2, right? Like, I wanted to be CEO, not COO, right? So moved back to Spokane, did the whole real estate thing just solo for a little bit. And then I started my company's Lily, which Lily is like now my acquisitions company. So wholesaling, fix and flip, long-term rentals, all that good stuff. And then the Creative Agents, which is the eventual real estate team once I passed my manager broker's exam. And then, my girlfriend and I just kind of duo real estate right now. But same mission, like, take everything nationwide, right? Like, just go crazy. And then those are my 2 main focuses. But outside of that, I'm crazy, right? So
man.
I have a bunch of other companies and stuff like that. Like, they probably don't get the attention they deserve, but, we'll see which ones kind of take off.
Well, so there's so much to unpack there. I'm really excited to kind of journey through that summary you just gave us. And one of the things that really caught my attention with you was it was sort of like in not all that long ago fashion, it's like, oh, here's Matt Brunner. Who is this guy? Like, he's marketing super well. He's got great branding. He's communicating in a good relational way on social media, which I'm terrible at. It's just one of those things where I'm just watching from a distance and seeing what you're doing. And as you share all those different things, it's like you've done a lot in a few years. And I would love to kind of unpack a bit the beginning of this journey where you're like, hey man, where you're saying you were 21 and you had like 50,000 in bad debt, right? Not like the investment style we like to see at times. So tell me how you went from, a young guy, 50,000 in debt for unwise reasons, to getting out of that debt and then having the mindset of this investor strategy, growth, COO to CEO approach. So 50,000, how'd you get rid of that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like mindset, mental health. I think those are like 2 big things I'm really passionate about. But also just like, did like a debt consolidation thing. I don't think that like really helped, but like it lowered it a little bit, right? But more or less, man, like, just like lived broke, you know what I mean? Like, drove a car that was like probably gonna blow up at some point. Every time I got into it, I was like, all right, today's the day. Like,
gonna risk my life to pay off the debt. Here we go.
Yeah, man. Or like, I can remember driving to work for a job that most people probably wouldn't do with a negative balance in my bank account, right? But like, I had 12 people depending on me. I had a team that we wanted to do. We had bigger visions than like me just paying off my debt, right? So I think a lot of it, man, was just like, I had a very low paying job, but I just went out and like, you have to do CEO shit after 5 o'clock, right? Excuse my language, but like you just have to, right? It's like 9 to 5, you got to make money. CEO stuff comes after 5, right? So it's like, yeah, we have great branding, we have great marketing, but that's not like 9 o'clock at night, man. You know, it's like 9 to 5, it's dollar productive. So for me, it was really just like putting my head down, finding those extra deals, finding that 1 to 2 extra deals. And that's a beautiful part of real estate is like, I'll just say it, there's stupid money to be made in real estate, right? And honestly, up until probably a year and a half ago, I didn't really realize that. But the way I kind of crawled out, man, was just, I told myself every day I just got a little bit better. You know, that balance got a little bit smaller, or maybe I'm just insane, maybe I'm not, but I've been on the same journey for 5 years, you know, 4 years, whatever it is. And there's never not been a time where I knew I wasn't going to hit it. So for me, it was just every single day I showed up because I knew I would be there, you know?
It's that mindset you're talking about. Like,
yeah, or I think reading changed my life, man. Like, one of the reasons so every single flip I do, I put like a neighborhood library in front of it, right? But I fill it with the books that help me. It's not like,
oh man, I love that.
Yeah, like, you know, we put one of them up and honestly somebody put food in it and I was like, no, I'm sorry. Like, you know, I took it to the local food bank, whatever, right? But I was like, no, I got plans for these, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we fill it with like I Will Teach You to Be Rich book, like the Almanac of Naval Rimsh. I pronounce his name wrong, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like the Cash Flow Quadrants, Think and Grow Rich, like Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Like we fill it with those books.
Okay.
Specifically because like if one person picks up that book and it changes their life, it's worth it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because that's in part what happened to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was never the guy in high school that was reading just to read. You know, if we had to do a book report, I'm probably looking it up on Spark Notes. You know what I mean? Like
you're talking about being efficient.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Productive. Yeah. Anyway,
exactly.
Keep going.
So I mean, we fill it with like books like those, you know?
Okay.
And then, hopefully somebody picks one up one day and, you know, changes their life too or whatever. But
that's so cool. I mean, it really sounds like, I mean, like you just a minute ago said, you know, paying off the debt, basically it's important, but really that wasn't the vision, right?
No.
Like that vision is not big enough to get you out of bed every day, keep you working till late into the night because you knew you'd make it. And you still know you're going to make it because I know your vision's not accomplished yet, right? Like you're continuing to go. Was there one book that really kind of shifted that? And I know you mentioned Keith Riddle and being in an environment like that. Like, was there like a moment or two or a book or a conversation that really kind of helped that mindset shift, right? Because you, at some point when you were in 50,000 in debt, that mindset wasn't there yet. And so like, what was a moment or two where you really had that pivotal shift in approach?
Yeah. I mean, so Monday morning, right? Wake up, 6 a.m., ready to go, you know, whatever. Walk outside, my car is gone.
Okay.
And like, it's so embarrassing, bro, but like, whatever, right? So it's like, I walk outside. It's like 6:30 in the morning, right? Like, I'm like getting to the office early, like super pumped, like motivated, whatever. My car's gone. I'm like, my car got stolen. This sucks. Like, I put it on Facebook. I'm like, hey, somebody help, whatever. I like call the police, all that good stuff. And then honestly, the cop was like, hey, bro, your car got repoed. And I was like, oh. Well, that sucks.
Wake up call.
Yeah. I mean, this is 3 years ago, whatever, right? And, you know, I still have the Google Calendar, like, in my phone, like, pops up every year. Car got repoed today, 2020 or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was like a big shift, right? 'Cause like that happened, right? And it's like, if anybody's been in like severe debt, they know this, but it's like you get call after call, like people trying to help you, people trying to collect debt, yada, yada, yada. But when your car just gets stripped from you, like that feels bad, man. That hurts.
Yeah.
But 5 minutes later, I was in an Uber going to the office. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You didn't go back inside, cry a bunch of tears. It felt like crap, but you kept going. You figured it out.
Yeah. And like straight up was living in my parents' basement, right? Like whatever. So that helped paying off debt too. But like, you know, my parents are like, where's your car at? And I was like, it got repoed. They're like, are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, I gotta go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got people depending on me. I got, you know, whatever. So yeah, nobody knew for months, right? And then thankfully closed a few deals, bought a car cash, you know, that one that pretty sure was going to blow up one day.
And you're still here to tell the tale, you know?
Thankfully,
survived it.
Yeah, like, yeah, whatever, right? But I think that was like a very pivotal moment of like, okay, just got real. I don't have a car anymore. this is real life, right?
Yeah.
So from there, man, like really just buckled down, got serious about financing. A really cool book is like Profit First by Mike Michalowicz.
Third book on the left. Anyway.
Hey, there we go. And just set up that debt account, right? I said, okay, I need to live on $1,000 a month, whatever it is. Everything else goes to there. And what was cool is I went through that debt company, whatever, and they told me that was the fastest they've seen somebody pay off that much money.
Okay. It's amazing.
And I was like, yeah, like that's the beautiful part of real estate, right? Is I had like my deals and whatnot, but I found an extra 3 to 5 deals, and that pretty much paid off 75% of it, So that was really nice. What kind of sucks is like everything I'm trying to do now, like all that stuff still impacts me, right? Because try to go get a loan, that's always hard, but we just work on that every day too. So
right. Well, and it seems like maybe to shift into this wholesale, investment property strategy. I mean, you're in that game, and so talk to us a bit about how, even though right now you're in that, you're not getting your traditional loan, but you're still moving forward in this industry. And so like, how are you approaching getting deals when you don't have that traditional financing that someone else may?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple points to that. So traditionally when you buy an investment property, you're using what's called like hard money, right? So it's cash, but it's not your cash. That's the way I like to describe it. So we're still able to like pick up investment properties because they're not like credit backed, at least like my lenders aren't. So more or less they care about the deal more than the person, right? So what's cool is like, I always think it's funny because my car got repoed 3 years ago, but I owe like $1.6 million in loans right now, right?
But tell us how you feel about that $1.6 million loan.
It's a lot better, man.
Yeah.
Like I put it on Facebook one day or whatever. I was like, man, like 4 years ago or whatever, it was 50 grand in debt and depressed, right? And now I'm like $1.6 million in debt and never been happier. And it's just like a weird twist, you know what I mean? Like there's equity there, right? Whatever. But yeah, so traditionally we're using a hard money loan, and then, primarily I try to fix and flip things, or if it's going to be like a long-term, hold, ideally like seller financing or something like that, right? But I think the way I solve most problems is go find somebody smarter than me and just listen, you know what I mean? So somebody told me about like a DSCR loan, so debt service coverage ratio loan. So once again, they qualify the property, not necessarily the person. So I'm still able to go refi into those. Sorry. It's a little bit higher interest rate, don't get me wrong, but at least it's hard money. It's lower than that. And then I'm able to like keep some properties every now and then, right?
Yeah.
So basically, buy it hard money, go from there, and then, do that whole thing. But primary exit's usually fix and flip for me. So.
Okay. So if someone says, hey, Matt, that sounds really great. Like I don't have money, or I'm in debt. You got into real estate, you were successful. I've got that grinding mentality where like failure's not an option for me, right? Like I'm going to succeed. I just need to know how to figure this out. So if that were you, or it's them now, what would a couple words of advice be about getting them specifically like real logistic steps they can take to make something like that happen?
Yeah, I think couple things to it. Like one, there's no shame in working for other people like while you're starting, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for Keith, if it wasn't for Josh, if it wasn't for whatever. So it's like, if you really have no cash, like maybe go work for somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Like that's totally fine. Like where can you provide value? You know what I mean? Like what's your superpower? What are you really good at? Or like maybe even the better question is like, what are you willing to do for free?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, will you go find deals for free? Will you go knock on 100 doors for me? Whatever it is, right? Or I think another avenue is like, maybe you don't get 100% of the deal. Maybe you cut up some equity or something like that. Like even for me today, it's like I can realistically do 1 to 3 projects like 100% by myself, right? But rather what I'll do is like literally made a Facebook post about this, and that's how it came from, is like, I just put it out there. I was like, I will give people equity if they bring all of the money, right? So it's like somebody, for me, they're going to bring 30 to 40 grand, but they're going to get 20% equity in the deal. So it's like they bring 30, 40 grand. In 6 months, they make 40 to 50 grand, right? Like they get a huge return on their investment. And it's like, I don't see why more people don't do that, right? Because then, okay, now you need $0, right? Like $0, man. like sometimes I hate people on the internet because everybody says like you can buy houses $0, but they pay like $4,000 a month in interest only payments, and it's like that's not $0, man.
Sure.
Or they're putting 10% down payment or whatever it is, right? So I think just like speak it into existence is like one of the big things I would push there is just like put it on Facebook. You never know who has cash. You never know who has a deal. You never know who needs to sell their house quickly or whatever it is, or however many people are like handy and like can do contracting work or whatever it is. So I think like actionable steps is just like put it into existence, right? Just manifest it, whatever it's going to be. And then just go find somebody, man. Like just go partner up. I'm more than happy to do deals with people. There's tons of investors out there that are more than happy to do deals with people. Yeah, I've bought a house where I've met the guy 2-3 times and like we own a house together. You know what I mean? Just because they saw the opportunity, and like whoever has the deal controls it. You know what I mean? So it's like if you have the deal, you have the power, if that makes sense. So
which is like a superpower.
Yeah.
Because you can have $0, you can be 100,000 in debt, 1 million in debt. But if you're the guy that says, hey, or the gal is like, listen, here's a deal and it makes sense financially for you to be a part of this, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
That you as the person who finds something of value like that can speak to someone who's got X, Y, or Z, power, authority, money, you name it, and you're in the driver's seat.
Yeah. My big things are like time, money, and effort. Right.
Okay.
So it's like, if I bring all the time and effort, well, somebody else has to bring the money, right? Or if I bring the money, you have to put in the time and effort, right? And like, it's really hard to like weigh those things, right? Like it's not 33, 33, 33, whatever it is. But it's just a conversation, man. It's like, for my people that only bring the money, it's like, one guy doesn't even know the address of the property, right? And it's like the garage burnt down. I like had to call him. I was like, hey, dude, like, tenant burnt down the garage, and he's like, okay, cool. I was like, okay. He's like, what are you doing to fix it? And I was like, I got insurance going out there, yada yada yada, you know. He's like, cool, it sounds like you're on it. I was like, sweet. You know, another guy, he does like his own flips and stuff too, and then he demanded a little bit more equity because he provided more, right? So it's like he provided a little bit of time, a little bit of effort. It's cool with me, you know what I mean? Yep. So
well,
I don't know.
It sounds like, I mean, really, you have to find the right person, right? It has to be a good partnership where when you know you've got the guy you can call, you're probably a bit nervous, but like, hey, bro, that garage, it's gone, right?
Yeah.
Crazy tenant. But hey, you know, I've got the insurance going. He trusts you, sounds like, right? So it's something where you have to also be smart. And like you said, there's plenty of investors out there. It might feel like it would be a really hard thing to find them, but if you've got the right deal, and if you're connecting with the right people, like you're saying, knocking doors for free, learning from people, where you had mentioned it a little bit ago when you got your car repoed, that you had, I think you had mentioned like 12 people depending on you, right? Like you were in an environment of growth, even though you knew financially it was tough, but you were probably getting around a bunch of people that right now are helping you expand your world and you theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, we hired one guy just because he was looking for a mentor, right? And he was like, can you guys mentor me on how to buy my first 2 rental properties? And I was like, no, like that's too expensive, to be honest. I don't want to do that for free, right? And he was like, okay, well, you know, okay, that works, whatever. And I was like, why do you even want to do this? And he kind of told me, he's like, oh, I want like to be free and blah, blah, blah. And this is like an 18-year-old kid, right?
Yeah.
I was like, dude, just come work for us. Like, literally just come work for us. Why not?
Right.
And like, what are you doing now? He's like, oh, I deliver lumber. And I'm like, how do you like that? And he's like, I hate it. I was like, cool, just come work for us.
So good.
But it's like, if he'd never took that step, right? And
right.
He called us off a sign call because it was like a flippable property, right?
Okay.
He's like, I want to get into this, like, yada, yada, yada. Can we meet up? Yada, you know, whatever. And just by the end of that, I was like, dude, just come work for us. Like, just join the crew, you know, like whatever. And then, he ran dispositions for us, and he was an 18-year-old kid, like selling investors 5 deals a month or
That's
whatever,
crazy.
you know what I mean? But it's like, where else would you get that experience,
right.
you know? And I don't know, I think about it a lot, like how many other 18-year-old kids are out there that, you know, they're just being told, go get a job or go to college or whatever it is, and like not hating on it, but like, I'm sure that's not what they want to do, right?
Right. That as society, we have such a predisposition towards kind of the mold, and yet there's so much opportunity. Like you said, there's stupid money to be made. You just have to take the right steps, the right approach, be around the right people, things like that. That's awesome. So Matt, as you've talked, there's different, like you said, you have businesses that are neglected even, right? Like you have this, to me, just an entrepreneurial approach, like you're always going. I think you mentioned like you're crazy, a little bit. Like, what have you found? Like, what's a time, even like right now, like, as we grow as people, as we grow in our businesses, we'll occasionally run into these ceilings, right? Where it's like we just sort of hit, man, I can't get past 5 deals a month or 50 a month, whatever it is. What's a time where you kind of saw that, like, okay, like I've hit a ceiling to growth. How did you get through that? Like, how did you notice it? Like, is there a time you can sort of think of where you hit a ceiling and you were able to break through that and get to the next level?
Yeah. Man, that's hard. But I would take it to like 2 principles, right? So one comes from like YouTube University, right? So like Tom Bilyeu, Impact Theory, like great channel, right? And he has this saying like, no bullshit, what would it take?
Okay.
So I just asked myself that, what I mean? It's like, okay, I'm here, I want to go here. Like, no bullshit, what would it take, right?
Uh-huh.
Is it $10,000? Is it I hire somebody else? Is it whatever? And I think that's the second point that I'll throw out there is like, who not how, right? So it's like, that's a great book too. And it's like, between those 2 things, it's like, no BS, what would it take? And then I just work backwards, right? And it's like, okay, well, if I want to get here, how do I do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if money wasn't an object, if time wasn't an object or whatever. And I just brainstorm. Like, it's seriously like my favorite days are just like writing on a whiteboard and like trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? And then the third is something I just started doing more recently is like, well, what would a smart person do? Or what would a Fortune 500 business owner do? Or what would a successful real estate investor do? I'd be like, oh, they'd probably look into like a HELOC or something like that. And I'm like, I should go look into a HELOC. You know what I mean? Or whatever it is. So those are like 3 key principles that like I try to, just like remember is just like, who can help me with this, right? Like most problems I'm not even able to solve, you know what I mean? And it's like, if I'm going to hire somebody for it, I think it's unfair to the person that I hired to even tell them how to do it most of the time because I'm not going to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to hire like an assistant right now. And I was like, systems are like there, but it's like in my head. So it's like, you got to create them. Like, I'm sorry, but like the way I do it is going to be completely different how you do it. And if you spend 100% of your attention on it, you're going to be way better at it, And then like, no BS, what would it take? Just tell me, right? And then like, what would a smart person do?
Right.
Or like, what would somebody do that's trying to go to 50 units a year or whatever it is? It's like, what do they do with their time? So I think those are like 3 kind of key principles.
Real Estate Mastery family, thank you so much for joining us today. I wanted to quickly bring to your attention one of the biggest pain points in the investment and real estate community, and that is roofs that go bad. What can happen, of course, is if you get a leak through a roof, it can destroy the entire interior of your home. If you're having a real estate transaction and a roof comes up in a home inspection and the buyer says, hey, we want a new roof, and by the way, that's going to cost $30,000. Or if you're a long-term investor and you have a property that has a roof replacement, that can wipe out years of profitability. And so we've decided to partner with a company called Roofmaxx, who actually specializes in extending the life of older asphalt shingle roofs to save you both time and money. And how it actually works is as simple as it's a bio oil they spray onto those shingles, it absorbs in, and it takes away that brittleness, extending the life of an asphalt roof on average between 6 to 8 years, and has a 5-year transferable warranty. So if you ever go to sell that property, it goes with that property at a fraction of the price of replacement, typically around 15%. So if you're interested, click the link in the description for your free evaluation today. It sounds, it's one thing, it seems like people sometimes get so fixated on a goal, but like you were talking about, like they don't necessarily reverse engineer into the steps to get there.
Yeah. Like we both K-Dub people, right? So it's like Gary Keller's whole one thing, right?
Right.
So it's like, if someday I want to be here, then 5 years I need to be here, 3 years, 1 year, 90 days today, right? And then right now. So it's like, every day, like, sure, we both have our to-do list, whatever. But it's like, my big thing is like, today's one thing, right? So it's like, if all I accomplished today was this, would it be a successful day?
Right.
Yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just really try to think about that. But it gets hard when you have multiple companies too, because it's like, well, the one thing for this company is this, and then this one is this, and then this, and then, suddenly you have 5 one things or whatever, but progresses.
So how have you failed forward in that? How have you managed that, having those 5 companies. Can you when if it were me, I'd have a hard enough time just listing them all off. Like, what are
you have no idea.
So if you list, so you've got the creative agents, you've got, keep going.
So, all right. So creative agents is like a real estate team, right? So duo with my girlfriend currently. So last year combined, we did about 13 million in sales. Lily is like our investing company. So Lily wholesales, Lily fix and flips, and then Lily will like keep as rentals, right?
Yep.
And even in there's like kind of 3 in 1. You know what I mean? Because like how you fix and flip something is different than how you keep it as a rental, et cetera, et cetera. The other kind of like hobby one is so free agency. So essentially what I want to build is like a college athlete transfer portal for real estate agents. Because as you know, real estate agents, we tend to change teams all the time, all that. But there's like 100+ teams in just Spokane. You know what I mean? So it's like me as a high performing real estate agent, right, whatever, right? Success is relative. But like, what if I just raised my hand and I said, hey, teams, recruit me. What will you give me? Or like, what is like your splits? Or like, think about how hard it is to find a team split, you know, without like talking to them. Or like, even just like to find who to talk to, right? So yeah, I don't know. Like I switched teams 6 months ago or so, and it was really frustrating. Like I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't know what they offer. So essentially, I was just thinking about it. I was like, man, if I was a college athlete, this would be so easy. It'd just like go into the transfer portal. People would start calling me. They'd be like, I'll give you this. And it's like, cool. Like, why can't we do that for real estate agents? You know?
Oh man, because it's so much work. Changing and to do something like that, that's like the ultimate easy button for people, and for teams to have a tool like that, they would be all over it.
So I mean, like your average agent might take between $12,000 to like $50,000 in revenue for your company, right, for your team. So what are you willing to pay for that? You know what I mean?
Right. It's just back to the just like cut right to it. What's it going to take? Okay.
And then the other ones are like, to flip a bunch of houses, you need a bunch of money, right? And like money is one of my most expensive fees right now. So why can't I start a fund, right? A while back, everybody was like, oh, hedge funds are buying every single house and blah, blah, blah. Well, like, that's cool. But my mind goes to like, why can't I be a hedge fund? Like most people are like, let's sell the hedge funds. And I'm like, no, like I want to be the hedge fund, you know? So starting like the process for like a 503c, 506c, one of the two. But that's like a whole thing in itself, and like a bunch of legalities and yada, yada, yada. You know, I like spreadsheets, but I don't like spreadsheets that much, right? So just trying to find somebody to like partner up with that. And then at a certain point too, it's like I paid something like 80 grand in labor this year for like random contractors. And like, I love my contractor, right? Don't get me wrong. But like, couldn't that just be my own payroll, right? It's like I'm spending that money anyways. So I think we'll start like a GC company at some point too. And then, you know, kind of like another hobby one is we had 6 flips hitting the market and we wanted to stage all of them. Well, why would we go pay another stager instead of just like buying the staging material and then boom, now we have a staging company. So now it's like we get to go on listing appointments and we're like, we'll just throw this in, right? Because it's just literally sitting in a storage unit. Or like if another agent or anything like that. So we staged a couple of houses, but it's not like super public facing. It's just kind of there. So we're trying to go like super vertical. And then at some point, I feel like all those companies could just bill a marketing company like $2,000 a month. And then now you just start a marketing company and then you just have a staff that just runs all of marketing. Right? So I don't know, like sometimes I feel like a crazy person like saying it out loud, but like it's all like synergistic, you know what I mean? Like it's like very, I don't know. So
no, I love that because as you share, it's like you just think about back to the beginning of the conversation, like there's stupid money to be made in real estate. If you just think of that as like the wheel and spoke model, right? Like real estate is the hub and then it's a natural spoke into general contracting. It's a natural spoke into why not have a hedge fund, right? Like it's a natural spoke into staging. I mean, that's expensive. And to just rent a storage unit and buy some good looking cheap Amazon furniture, maybe I'm overstating the simplicity here, of course, but like you are thinking big. And I love that for the people listening to this podcast, because I know when I started real estate, it was just like, I'm a salesperson selling houses until I met with Chase Williams, you know, or guys like Keith, where it's like, these guys, they're not just selling real estate. In fact, they're not selling real estate, but they are in the real estate game. And so for those who are listening, it's like, I bet there's got to be a lot of spokes spinning, like gears churning a little bit. And that's what I'm really excited about hearing from you, doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think of real estate as like a giant universe, right? And it's like investing as a galaxy, and then inside of investing there's planets and like everything else, right? And then it's like just real estate sales, like there's a whole different thing with that, right? So you just kind of have to like choose which galaxy you want to play in, you know what I mean? And it's like, don't get me wrong, like big believer in like make your one thing,
Sure.
right? Like,
Sure.
I only have 100% attention, right? Or effort or whatever, right? And it's like, I have a personal life. I have a beautiful girlfriend. I want to spend time with her or whatever, right? But like, I got shit to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, I try to go back to that like core principle of like who, not how, right? So it's like, yeah, I have a bunch of stuff going, but like none of it will really scale to the point where I want to go if I have to like be the operator in every single one of them. So then it's just a game of like time, money, and effort.
Right.
Well, it's like if I can just pay a bunch of people or like pay one person to like run the fund, right? So it's like right now it's like I would offer equity, whatever, right? Base salary, whatever, to like anybody who wants to start that, because I already know I'm going to spend $100,000 this year in hard money payments.
Right.
Like, why wouldn't I just pay somebody to like go raise the capital themselves, you know, or whatever it is? Same thing with contracting. It's like looking to hire contractors because I already know I'm going to spend that money.
Right.
And then like the craziest part is like I go get the hard money loan and then I pay the contractors with the hard money loan. So it's like, it's not even my money I'm paying them. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I don't know. There's always challenges. There's always stuff like that. Like if I go get a crew of 5 people, now I got to keep them busy. So now I got to go find more deals. And then to find more deals, now I have to go have this acquisitions company that finds the deals and so on and so on, you know?
Yep. So take me back to when you were in New York and you're the COO of the COOs, if I remember that correctly.
Yep.
And you had someone that you, sounds like, pretty quickly fired.
Yeah.
Right. So tell me a bit about that. But the context being, as you talk about running different businesses, as you talk about people depending on you as a leader, there's hard conversations that have to happen and things that have to take place in order for the organization to succeed. So talk to me a little bit about, one, that experience, if you're okay with that, and then two, those hard conversations as you grow business.
Yeah. I mean, so that guy, like companies start top down, right? It all starts with leadership. So within the first like couple days of being there, like, we have our group chats, like we're a pretty remote company, whatever. It's like this dude's always like making jokes in group chat and like, I love having fun, right? Whatever. But they were like not appropriate jokes sometimes. And I was just like, okay, so like, here's the standard for our company. And then he brings it here. And then like, because he thinks it's okay, now every employee thinks it's okay. And then it just keeps going down and down and down, right? Or like sitting in on some of the team meetings, it's like, hey guys, we only got 1 contract this week, but like, great job, like good job, whatever, right? And it's like, no, the goal's 4. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a great job, right? And like kind of the transition that to like the tough conversation thing, it's like, for me, it's one of my big things is like, don't tell me you want to do something and then don't do it, right? Because that is pretty easy to be like, well, Rick, like you said you were like going to do this and then you didn't do it. So like what happened, right?
Yeah.
Another great book is like Multipliers, right? By Liz Wiseman, I think. And it's like, and the entire idea of it is like, why beat someone up, right? Like they probably already know they're not doing a good job, especially if it's like a commission-based job. Like,
right.
I'm sure they know.
They really know.
I mean? And it's like like what gets tracked matters, right? So, or what gets measured matters. So it's like we had our scorecards and we had our scoreboard and stuff like that. And it's pretty easy to look at data, right? And then just know if somebody's doing their job or not, right? Like we don't want to like think of people as numbers per se, but we have people, you got to hold people accountable,
right.
So like tough conversations are hard, but like I think the best way to approach them is just like, hey Rick, this is awkward. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Honestly, like I got to that company and like I'm not proud of this or happy about this or anything, but like we fired like 7 people in the first like 2 weeks. And like that was hard. Like, just like this new guy and like I'm coming in like clearing house, right?
Right.
But it's just like we hold people to really high standards. And if you don't want to hit that, that's great, but we just can't have it. You know what I mean? And then it's like every single one of those conversations, it's pretty easy to just be like, hey man, like we're expecting this is where we're at, what's happening, right? One of my big things is like One of my business coaches talks about like GWC, right? So it's like, do you get it? Do you want to do it? And do you have the capacity to do it? So it's like, do you fundamentally understand the job? Like, do you get what you're supposed to be doing? Okay, cool. We're on the same page. You need to do X, Y, and Z, whatever. Do you want to do it? Like, do you get enjoyment out of this? Like, do you want to do this? Because that's a different conversation, right? If somebody like just clearly doesn't understand what they're responsible for, how can you get mad at them, right?
Sure.
But like, if they just don't want to do it, well, like, cool, dude. Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, for both of our sakes.
200,000 remote jobs on Indeed right now. You know what I mean? Like, whatever, right? And then the last one is just like, do you have the capacity to do it, right? So it's like, if I'm expecting, just for whatever example, 100 phone calls a day, but like realistically, you can only do 50 and you can show that the capacity is only 50, well, cool. That's not a you problem, that's a goal problem. You know what I mean? So it's like those three things are pretty easy to narrow it back to like, okay, are you a good fit for this role or not?
Right.
And then the idea of multipliers is like, don't beat somebody up. You know what I mean? Like help them discover the problem themselves, but the solution themselves. So it's like very like question based, right? It's like, hey, Rick, when you're on the phone with the seller, like, why do you think they don't sell their house with you? Instead of being like, you're bad at this. And it's like, oh, that hopefully that person's like, oh, I think I could work on this more.
Right.
Okay, cool. Like, what does that look like? Like, can we role play this or whatever it is, right? And it's like, if we really can't figure it out together, then maybe you're just not a good fit for it, So I don't know. Awkward conversations are hard. Hard things are hard. It's just part of the game,
And I think you just highlighted a really important part of leadership, though, where it's like you're seeking the best for that person, right, and helping them think different. So many times we just struggle to think outside of our grind, and so the best question you could ask is like, hey, do you enjoy this? Like, do you want to do this? And then giving them the opportunity, so maybe they do, and you as their leader, then as their coach, as their boss, helping them figure out, hey, okay, you're at 50. Well, how can we get to 100? Or do we need to adjust the goal because you're XYZ, but you're having a conversation, they're owning it. That's huge.
Yeah. And it's like, we have scorecards, we have scoreboards, all that good stuff. And it's like, if we don't hit a goal for 3 days straight, maybe the goal's wrong, right? Because that's a pretty good indicator of like, is it a capacity problem, right?
Right.
And then, it's like, if you don't have a scoreboard, you can't reverse engineer things back. So it's like, I don't know. Like I see a bunch of agents all the time that have 15 different lead sources or whatever, but they're not tracked at all. So they don't know which one's the most profitable. And then they just keep doing 15 things. It's like maybe 12 of them suck. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. Hard things are hard. One of my core things too is like, I try to work with people, not for people, or people work with me, not for me. And I think it goes back to, like you were saying, it's just like, do you enjoy this? Like, is this even like your best interest, or should I give you the opportunity to explore the job market?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is, right? But I don't know. I think it goes back to like, as a leader, we have certain expectations and like goals that we want to hit. And if that person's not the right person to get you there, like, sorry,
Yep.
It's just a hard conversation. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. You mentioned tracking. It's been a piece of the conversation throughout here. And you mentioned agents, right? Like a typical real estate agent, I would be one of them, where it's like, I'm more of a people person, a bit more the vision side. I love the hunt of a deal. But when it comes to spreadsheets, details, tracking, it's like, man, I'd rather smash my head against the wall. And yet numbers are the language of business. And so you mentioned something I think really important. And so for those who are listening, who are maybe in that mold of not naturally geared towards those numbers, like, how have you, like, what system, do you have a system that is easier than others? Like, how have you become successful or grown in that area in your own business of tracking those numbers?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think like another core value is like KISS, right? So keep it
simple, stupid.
Yeah. I mean, I try to like flip it, like keep it stupid, simple. Right?
I love that.
It's a little nicer. Sometimes I tell myself the other way, but whatever, right?
Well, because I mean, just to interject there, what you're saying is like the mindset thing matters, right? So if you're like, keep it simple, stupid, like, gosh, I'm an idiot, you know, like, well, that's not helpful for growth.
Yeah. When it's so easy to get stuck in like KPI land, right? Key performance indicators.
Right.
Like, it's so easy to get stuck in KPI land, right? Like, when you start
in the universe of real estate, you're giving me all kinds of word pictures. This is great.
Yeah, like, dude, like it's so easy to say I need to track these 1,000 things, right?
Right.
And like maybe there's data there that like matters, whatever.
Sure.
But I would just ask yourself, like, what are the most impactful and dollar productive figure like things that I do every day, right? So if you ask me for like a real estate agent, that's like number of conversations you have, but like good conversations, right?
Like no cheating, like, oh, I said hi to the barber and we talked about the Seahawks game last night. Yeah, that was a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Like real estate didn't get brought up at all, but I'm gonna still count it, you know, whatever.
So you have to have the accountability of like, you understand what has to be in that conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's like probably to take top down. It's like, how many leads am I generating, right? How many calls am I making? How many conversations am I having? How many appointments have I set? How many offers did I write? And then like, what's my pipeline revenue? Like, I think those are like the most important like indicators. And then for me, it's like, it's super simple. And like, honestly, anybody who wants to reach out to me, I can send it to you. Like, we just use a Google form. You just fill it out at the end of the day. And like, I'll be honest with you, it's not like every single day it gets filled out. Like user input is error, right? So it's like, it's reliant on me doing it. But at least I have something, you know what I mean? And then it's like, from there, it just auto-populates into a spreadsheet, and then we review that spreadsheet once a week, once a month, whenever business gets slow, whatever it is, right? But super simple system. It can be as complicated as you want or not. It's really up to you. I would try to find like a CRM that like automatically tracks it, or, you know, like there's like other companies like Sisu or something like that will like integrate with your CRM, but like, it's again, man, just like keep it simple, you know?
Right. Keep it stupid simple.
Yeah. Like, I don't like, so we used to coach people back in New York, right? And one of our big things was like, if you can't explain your business to a sixth grader, it's probably too complicated. Cause like, it's not rocket science, right?
Right.
Like that's literally my LLC it's not rocket science.
That's great.
Yeah, dude.
And I got this universe picture, you know, your illustration earlier.
Oh, yeah,
and,
I guess that.
And now you've got the LLC name, like, bro, keep going.
That's where I came from. But I don't like quicks on that. Like my CPA was like, don't name your real estate like what you use it for. And I was like, okay, not used for rocket science. But yeah, man, like it's like, if you can't explain your business to like a sixth grader, it's probably too complicated, right? Cause in the grand scheme of things, it's like, I talk to people that want to buy and sell houses. I help them buy and sell a house. I create a lasting relationship with them. Eventually they buy and sell a house again.
Right. it's a sixth grader's a kindergartner should understand that.
Yeah. It's like Rick wanted like whatever, right? Like talking to your son, something like daddy met Rick and Rick wanted to sell his house. So daddy marketed Rick's house, found a buyer for it. And then now dad gets paid. And then like, hopefully Rick calls dad in 7 years or whatever it is, right? It's like, it doesn't have to be much more simple to like harder than that. Like obviously starting the conversations, I think is where people get like lost a lot. Just because how many different lead sources can we name off the top of our head, right? 50 plus, right? But how many are effective or like going back to like, I don't like when people tell me they want to do something and then don't do it. So it's like, I talk to newer agents all the time that they're like, I'm going to go door knock 50 houses a day, and I'm going to hold an open house every weekend, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to handwrite letters to, 250 people a day, whatever. It's like, okay, cool. Like, I'm sorry, dude. Like, I don't want to be this guy, but I bet you'll do that for 2 days. Like, which one can you consistently do that, like, proves results, right? It's like, which one can you actually look yourself in the mirror and be like, I can commit to this, right? Or whatever it is. Because I've been stuck in that, right? It's like, oh, I want to do these 10 different marketing sources, but they don't get done consistently, right? I think there's just a lot of power in consistency. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, talk to me about coaching, right? You said that you have a coach or coaches, because that accountability piece I know plays a role with coaching and motivation and insight. So talk to me a bit about your world with coaching.
Yeah. So I currently have a bunch of mentors and then 2 coaches, I would say.
Okay.
So one of my coaches, I want to start that fund. They're attorneys out of Cleveland that teach people how to do that.
Okay.
So I was like, cool.
Heck yeah.
Walk me through it, right? Like whatever I need, Another coach is just like a sales trainer, and then like he runs a wholesaling business as well. So just kind of rely on him of like what's working for you, what do you see working at like nationwide, but like you said, kind of like an accountability piece too, because every week it's like how's business, and it's like ugh,
Yeah.
you know, like if it's not good, it's hard, right? But sometimes it's good to just like have that person to like talk things out with, right? And then like getting like a real deep dive into like what's going on, you know? And then ideally too, it's like I have a couple people that I would say like I coach, but like very nonchalantly or whatever. It's like I'm an open book, man. Like whatever, like any questions anybody has or anything like that, like more than happy to like help out any way I can, because I wouldn't be where I'm at unless I had those mentor figures, right? So it's like now it's people like Chase Williams, it's other people like K-Dub, it's other people just around the nation that I've met that it's like, I have this problem. Have you also had this problem?
Because there's a bunch of people that have and have figured it out, and you got to find them.
You know, it's like this whole market shift thing came about whenever 4 or 5, 6 months ago, whatever it is. I just started asking people like, you know, what are you doing? Like, are you scared? Like, do you have this issue too? Like, I have flips that we went over on budget and blah, 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 or whatever. And like, now it's like not selling, right? Or it's not selling for the amount that we wanted it to. It's like, well, what are you doing to pivot? Or like, what's going on? So I think it goes back to like, you know, I was talking to Rachel, my girlfriend, about this, and she's like, well, what are you going to do? I was like, go find somebody smarter than me and do what they did. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So more or less, like, just scheduled a bunch of meetings with, you know, investors that have like more experience than me or like anything like that. And, you know, tried to provide value to them first and then tried to get something back, right? Like, hey, like I have this issue, like, what would you do? Or whatever it is. So yeah, man, just try to like source those coaches and like mentors in my life that like have experienced these things that I haven't, because I've been in it for 4 years, but I learned something new every single day. So,
which in this industry, it just seems like there's always more to learn. In life, there's more to learn. Yeah,
it's insane, man. Like so many people like think they know everything or like want to know everything, and it's like, first of all, you don't need to know everything. I also think that hurts people from getting started, is like they think they need to know everything too. But yeah, I don't know. I just try to source people that have like been there before, and it's not like taking advantage of them or anything. It's just like, hey, like, what do you need? This is what I need. Like, can we help each other?
Right. So, yeah. Well, and I think, you know, you find the right people, they want to share. Yeah. Because they have that abundant mindset where it's like, hey, I don't want to go through what I went through in 2008. I don't want you to go through it now, you know? And that's great. So Matt, one of the questions I like to ask is, you know, what is just sort of a crazy story, right? Like within this universe of real estate, is there a story that you could share with us that's just like, oh man, this one client, I'm not naming names, or man, I showed up in this one house and it was crazy. I mean, like what, I just love to hear kind of just the random off the wall, what the heck was that kind of moment, or a real touching moment. It could be any of those things.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess a couple things come to mind, but like one is like hoarder houses or like real life, like it's insane how people like live. But like, I want to preface this with like, people hate on like wholesalers and stuff like that, or like people hate on like people that go buy houses for cash because they're like stealing equity or something like that. But it's like, it's a service, man. Like these people need us, right? 95% of people should sell their house with a real estate agent and do that whole thing, right? 5% of people, they need us. Facing foreclosure, their house needs a ton of repairs. They're in some sort of like financial debacle that like they can't solve or whatever, right? Some sort of unique situation, right? So it's like, I think about like every gross house I've ever been in, you know? I went in one house, so there's probably 5,000 beer cans on the ground, right? It was insane. Or like, I always think about this one. So this lady, like, we called her up randomly on like a cold call, and then like, you know, she was like, yeah, you can come check it out, but I don't think you're going to want to buy it. Like it needs a ton of repairs, yada, yada, yada. And we're like, that's what we do, etc. That lady was 80 years old, something like that. The pipes in her bathroom were like bursted open. So like she had mold throughout the bathroom, mold throughout the house. There was fire damage still in the house. Like insurance wouldn't fix anything. She didn't have like the like physical capability to fix it, or like the financial capability, right? And they just felt stuck. all they wanted to do is move closer to Idaho to be next to their sister or whatever it is, right? They're getting up there in age. They need help, yada, 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 right? But it's like there's been a few real estate agents that I guess went through the house and they're like, we can't sell it. You need to do X, Y, and Z, whatever. So we were just able to go in there and like offer them a service, right? Like, hey, like, we'll take on the house as is condition. We can do this price, yada, 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 right? Long story short, like that transaction ended with like her in tears, right? And then like the daughter coming up from Idaho and being like, thank you so much. Like,
Yeah.
we never thought she would have sold her house, right? And it's like, even in that transaction, they wanted to go buy a trailer and our transaction got delayed for some reason, right? But we couldn't delay the purchase of the trailer. So it's like we put money down on the trailer for her. Like we paid our deposit. We got paid back at closing, don't get me wrong, but it's like we were willing to like do that for somebody. And it's like in a normal real estate transaction, that's not going to happen. Right? Like the buyer's never going to be like, yeah, let me put your 15 grand deposit down on your trailer or whatever. But like long story short, now it's like that lady lives down the street from her daughter and she gets the care that she needs. And then like, I always remember that one because like, I don't really get closing gifts from clients all the time. But she gave me a rock. And it was like so weird, right? Like she gave me like a giant rock.
Okay.
And I was like, thanks, like super cool. Like just played it off. And then like, she was like tearing up. I was like, is there a story behind this? Like, or did you just actually just give me a rock? It's like, whatever, right? I didn't say that part. But I guess they used to travel the country and they went to a bunch of different like mining areas and stuff like that. And they picked a rock from everywhere. And like, even something she told us like throughout the like kind of process, she was like, all of these rocks are like from across the United States. And like, she built like a rock retaining wall from it or something. It's tipping over, don't get me wrong, but it was there, So I don't know. It just made me think like, wow, like this rock is like so valuable to her.
Yeah.
But it's a rock.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like sitting in my front yard now or whatever, right? But like sometimes I just look at it and I'm like, wow, dude, like that rock was like so meaningful for her.
Right.
And it's just like, what's like my rock or whatever, It's like, I don't know if I really have one, but it's like, it's just crazy how she valued it. I guess that's what I was getting at.
Well, yeah. And I think highlighting that like it's time and money, right? And convenience. I mean, it's just at the end of the day, if someone can't perform in kind of the typical MLS scenario, you've created a way out. And you can do that I think sometimes in any industry, it's the people who don't do what should be done with integrity that kind of spoil it in a way where when you can go in and actually serve someone well, make profit in the process, but you're putting the person's needs in the forefront of that whole journey. Like that's an incredible way to do it.
Yeah. Or like, so two other like quick stories or whatever, right? It's like, we were just in a listing appointment the other day, right? Realtor hat was on, whatever, right? And she had a couple other agents through and she was like, you guys can't sell my house for enough for me to like do what I need to do, yada, 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 which she was right. Yeah. Right. But she owes $335 on a mortgage with a 3% interest rate. And she just wanted to walk away with 20 grand. So I was like, can I assume your mortgage and take that burden from you, give you 20 grand, you go get to buy a new place and I'll take over your mortgage, right? No other agent ever said that. You know what I mean?
And that's back to the like stupid money.
Yeah.
But you're just like, so for those of you listening, not watching, Matt's got on the creative agent shirt. It's like, there's creativity at work right there. Like you're problem solving, you're creating a solution for someone. And she was probably totally excited about that.
Yeah. I mean, like there was definitely a like skepticism of it, right?
Sure.
Because she was like, wait, what do you mean? And I was like, okay, like there's 3 routes we can go with this, right? It's like you can sell your house, you're probably going to break even. You can rent your house out and then like go buy something else. But like now you're a landlord, yada, yada. This lady's like 68 years old or whatever, right? She doesn't want to deal with it. Or I can just assume your mortgage, pay you out, in the transaction, right? And so it's like, we'll give her 20 grand or whatever. But like, if she sold her house, she'd have to probably spend 10 grand in repairs and then like minus 10% in fees. And like the house would probably sell for like 375 after making 10 grand, right? In repairs. So it's like, okay, now we're at 365 minus 37 for like real estate fees and all that good stuff. And it's like, she'll make more money doing it this way.
Right.
but I get a 3% interest rate, which is going to be unheard of for the next.
Oh man, who knows? Forever.
Yeah, until the next global pandemic. And then, the payment's $1,500 a month for 4-2 on the South Hill with a 2-car garage on 35th or something like that. So it's like, I think we're going to move into it, which would be cool. But it'll also probably rent for like $2,500 plus.
Oh, yeah.
It's a couple blocks from like Sacred Heart too. So maybe we can do like short-term nurse or something like that, right? But it's like, it's just problem solving. You know what I mean? Like she had an issue that nobody else could really solve. And then thankfully just experience, like learned about investing or whatever. And I know that VA loans are assumable.
Right.
So, working through that one right now, which is good. And then, it's just how many other agents walk through that house and, they just weren't able to do that or whatever. So.
Okay. That's good. Well, before we go, anything I missed, any question I should have asked that I didn't, or any final words of wisdom you'd want to give us?
Ooh, I'm not sure. I'm good at answering questions, not thinking of them. I don't know, man. I think like a lot of it is just like, Joe Dirt, right? Like keep on keeping on, right? Just like push through. And like, I think a lot of it too is, a lot of people get stuck in like planning processes, right? Or like just the planning phase, like analysis paralysis or whatever, right? But it's not always bad. And like, I had this like mindset shift when I first got started. Like maybe I'm just better at that. You know what I mean? Like maybe I'm just really good at the planning part, and that I found people that really good at taking the action, you know? So it's like now I got to like put the plan together, but also like take action on it, right? Yeah. So I think it's just like, what's your superpower? What are you like naturally good at? Like genuinely think about like in a perfect day, like what would you do, right? And then like go find the like in-betweens, right? It's like in a perfect day for me, it's like doing marketing and like managing the CRM and like setting appointments, and then somebody else's perfect day is just going on appointments all day, partner up, right? So yeah, I don't know. I think there's like a need for more operators in the real estate world for sure, because I think it's just full of crazy people like you and me. And then, we all need like a Wozniak for the jobs, right? So yeah.
It's good. All right, man. Well, Matt, I appreciate the time. You gave a ton of good insight. I'm excited to listen back to and take notes on myself. So anyway, brother, I appreciate it, and keep crushing out there, man. And so you've mentioned, before we go, I guess, that you're all about partnering with people. We can see that. We can hear that in you. So for those who are listening, what would be some a good way to get in touch with you or to follow you, or you name it?
Yeah, I would say like Facebook's probably the best way. So just look me up on Facebook, or maybe we can put it in the show notes or something. Or like straight up, like my phone number is 509-217-7444. Call, text, email, whatever. But yeah, just like start a conversation. You know what I mean? Like you never know where it's going to go. You never know who I know that you need to know, or vice versa, right? So